The first time I saw my father's name, I was 12 years old. Not on a birthday card. Not on a family photo. Not even in a letter. I saw it on a magazine cover at a grocery store. The headline called him one of the richest men in America. I stood frozen beside the checkout line, staring at his face. The same sharp jaw. The same dark eyes. The same features I saw every morning in my mirror. My mother snatched the magazine from my hands. "Put that back," she said. I looked at her. "Who is he?" Her face turned pale. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered words that changed my life forever. "That's your father." The world seemed to stop moving. My father wasn't dead. He wasn't missing. He wasn't some mystery man nobody knew. He was alive, rich, famous, and he had never once come looking for me. That night I couldn't sleep. Questions filled my head. Why wasn't he here? Why didn't he want me? What had I done wrong? I had no idea that the truth was even worse than abandonment. Because my father hadn't simply left. He had erased me. My name is Ava Monroe. I am 28 years old now. But this story begins long before that magazine cover. I grew up with my mother in a tiny apartment above a bakery. We never had much money. My mother worked 2 jobs. Some nights she came home so tired she fell asleep at the kitchen table. Yet she always smiled at me. She always made sure I had food, books, and love. For years I believed that was enough. Then I learned about Victor Blackwell, my father, the billionaire founder of Blackwell Industries. The man who owned private jets, skyscrapers, and luxury homes around the world. The man who never acknowledged I existed. When I finally confronted my mother, she cried. She told me they had dated when they were young. Back then, Victor wasn't rich. He was ambitious, obsessed with success. When she became pregnant, he offered her money to disappear. She refused. Then he disappeared instead. I thought that was the worst part. It wasn't. My mother handed me my birth certificate. I stared at the paper. Mother's name, date of birth, hospital information. Everything was there. Everything except one thing. The father's section was completely blank. Not unknown. Not unavailable. Blank. As if I had appeared from nowhere. As if I wasn't worth naming. The blank space haunted me for years. Every school form reminded me. Every government document reminded me. Every Father's Day reminded me. I wanted answers. At 16, I wrote Victor a letter. No response. At 17, I sent another. Nothing. At 18, I emailed his office. Ignored. It became a pattern. I reached out. He pretended I didn't exist. Eventually, anger replaced sadness. If he wouldn't acknowledge me, I would stop chasing him. Focused on school instead. Numbers came naturally to me. Business fascinated me. I studied successful companies. I learned how billionaires built empires. I paid special attention to Blackwell Industries. The more I learned, the more determined I became. One day I would stand across from Victor Blackwell. Not as a forgotten daughter. Not as someone begging for love. As someone he couldn't ignore. That promise became fuel. While other teenagers dreamed about parties and vacations, I dreamed about boardrooms. While others chased popularity, I chased knowledge. I graduated near the top of my class. Won scholarships. Entered college. And every step forward felt like a step toward something bigger. Toward the future. Toward revenge. By 22, I had earned my business degree. By 24, I had launched a consulting firm with 2 classmates. Everyone thought we were crazy. 3 young women competing against established corporations. But we worked harder than everyone else. We studied markets day and night. We solved problems larger companies couldn't solve. Clients started noticing. Then investors started noticing. Within 3 years, our company exploded. Revenue doubled. Then tripled. Then doubled again. For the first time in my life, I had money. Real money. Enough to move my mother into a beautiful home. Enough to pay every debt she had ever carried. The day I handed her the keys to her new house, she cried. "I always knew you'd do something amazing," she whispered. I hugged her tightly. The little girl who once felt unwanted suddenly felt powerful. Not because of wealth. Because I had built it myself. No billionaire father. No inheritance. No shortcuts. Everything I owned came from hard work. And that made it sweeter. I thought success would erase my anger. Didn't. Because every business article still praised Victor Blackwell as a genius. Every interview painted him as a family man. Every photograph showed him smiling beside his wife and son. The perfect family. The perfect legacy. A legacy built while pretending I didn't exist. The first crack in Victor's perfect world appeared when I was 26. His only son, Ethan, was arrested. The news exploded everywhere. Drugs, fraud, reckless spending. Scandal after scandal followed. Investors panicked. Share prices dipped. Board members grew nervous. For years, Victor had bragged that Ethan would inherit everything. Now the future heir looked completely unfit. I watched every headline carefully. Not because I cared. Because I saw opportunity. For the first time, Victor looked vulnerable. Then came an article that made me smile. Sources claimed Blackwell Industries was quietly searching for succession options. Translation. Victor was desperate. His golden son had become a disaster. The empire suddenly had no clear future. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt curiosity. Would he finally think about me? Would he finally remember the daughter he erased? A month later, I got my answer. A black luxury car stopped outside my office. A man in an expensive suit stepped out. He introduced himself as Victor Blackwell's personal attorney. Then he handed me an envelope. Inside was a simple note. 3 sentences. Ava, we need to talk. It's about your future. I read the note 3 times before I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. For 26 years, Victor Blackwell had ignored every letter, every email, every attempt I made to contact him. Now suddenly he wanted to talk. His attorney waited quietly across from my desk. What does he want? I asked. He would prefer to explain in person. I folded the note and slid it back into the envelope. Tell him no. The attorney blinked. No. I spent half my life trying to get 5 minutes of his attention. Now he can spend half his life waiting for mine. The man shifted uncomfortably. Miss Monroe, this matter is important. It wasn't important when I was 12. His face tightened. For the first time he seemed unsure what to say. Understood. The meeting was over. As he reached the door he stopped. Mr. Blackwell is prepared to make significant arrangements. There it was. Money. The answer rich people always offered when they ran out of excuses. I smiled politely. Tell him to keep it. Then I watched the attorney leave. That night I expected to feel victorious. Instead I felt restless. Because deep down I knew something had changed. Victor wasn't reaching out because he cared. He was reaching out because he needed something. The question was simple. What? And why now? The answer arrived 2 weeks later. I was attending a business conference in Chicago when I saw him. Victor Blackwell. Standing 20 feet away. Older than the magazine photos. His hair had turned silver. His shoulders looked heavier. But he was still unmistakably my father. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then his eyes widened. He recognized me immediately. Of course he did. I looked too much like him. He approached carefully. Ava. Hearing my name in his voice felt strange. Like hearing a ghost speak. Victor. Pain flashed across his face. You don't have to call me that. I think I do. An awkward silence followed. People moved around us. Nobody noticed the war happening between father and daughter. Finally he spoke. I owe you an apology. I crossed my arms. One apology for every year you ignored me. His expression hardened. Then softened again. I made mistakes. Mistakes. I laughed. You forgot to sign a birthday card. That's a mistake. Erasing your daughter is a choice. He looked down. For a second he actually seemed ashamed. Then he said the words I had waited years to hear. I want to make things right. But instead of relief, I felt suspicion. Because people like Victor Blackwell never did anything without a reason. We met for dinner the next evening. Not because I trusted him. 'Cause I wanted answers. The restaurant overlooked the city skyline. Everything about it screamed wealth. Victor seemed uncomfortable from the moment he sat down. But I had been uncomfortable for 26 years. Finally, he cleared his throat. I've followed your career. That surprised me. You have. He nodded. I know about your company. I stared at him. So you've been watching me? Yes. While pretending I didn't exist. He didn't deny it. The silence stretched. Then he reached into his jacket and removed a photograph. It showed a much younger version of my mother. Smiling. Happy. My chest tightened. I loved her, he said quietly. I almost laughed. People don't abandon the people they love. His face darkened. My father threatened her. That caught me off guard. What? He said a child would destroy my future. He promised to ruin her life if she stayed. I sat frozen. For years, I had imagined dozens of explanations. None included that. Victor rubbed his forehead. I was weak. I chose ambition over courage. For the first time I saw genuine regret. Not performance. Not manipulation. Regret. But regret didn't erase decades. And it certainly didn't explain why he needed me now. Then he finally revealed the truth. Ava, I need your help. There it was. The real reason for the meeting. Victor didn't waste time. My company is in trouble. I nearly choked on my drink. The words sounded absurd. Blackwell Industries was worth billions. How could it be in trouble? Then he explained. Years of bad decisions by executives. Failed expansions. Investor concerns. And worst of all, Ethan. His son's scandals had damaged public trust. The board is nervous, Victor admitted. They should be. He sighed. You're right. That wasn't the answer I expected. Rich men usually defended themselves. Victor seemed exhausted. Defeated. For a moment I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then he leaned forward. I need someone capable to protect what I've built. I stared. You mean you need someone capable to protect what you're losing? He accepted the criticism. Maybe. The honesty surprised me. Then came the bombshell. I want you to join Blackwell Industries. I laughed immediately. No. Ava. No. The answer came easily. Too easily. He looked disappointed. I would give you a senior executive role. Still no. I would personally mentor you. No again. Then he said something that changed everything. If you refuse, Ethan becomes the likely successor. That made me pause. Not because I wanted the position. Because I knew exactly what Ethan would do. He would destroy the company. Thousands of employees would suffer. Years of work would disappear. Victor noticed my hesitation. For the first time, hope appeared in his eyes. And that worried me. Because I wasn't supposed to be considering this. I spent the next month thinking about the offer. Every logical part of my brain screamed no. Blackwell Industries wasn't my responsibility. Victor wasn't my responsibility. The mess he created wasn't my responsibility. Yet I couldn't stop analyzing the situation. Eventually, curiosity won. I agreed to visit headquarters. The building towered over downtown Manhattan. Glass, steel, power. The moment I entered, I understood why Victor fought so hard to protect it. This wasn't just a company. It was his life's work. Employees hurried through hallways. Meetings filled conference rooms. Entire careers depended on the decisions made inside those walls. Victor personally guided me through the building. Every department greeted him respectfully. But something felt wrong. People looked nervous. Fearful. Like they expected disaster. Then I met Ethan. And suddenly everything made sense. He arrived 20 minutes late. Insulted 3 employees. Ignored important reports. and spent most of the meeting staring at his phone. By the time he left, everyone looked relieved. Victor seemed embarrassed. I simply observed. The board meeting later that afternoon was even worse. Investors openly questioned Ethan's fitness. Executives exchanged worried glances. The empire was cracking, and everyone knew it. When the meeting ended, I stood beside the massive windows overlooking the city. Victor joined me. "What do you think?" I watched the streets below. Then I smiled. Not a friendly smile. Calculating one. For the first time I could see the entire board. The weaknesses, the opportunities, the future. And suddenly I realized something. Victor thought he was inviting me into his company. He had no idea he was inviting me to take it. I accepted the position 2 weeks later. The news shocked almost everyone. The media called it a brilliant business move. The board called it a relief. Ethan called it a mistake. Personally, to my face. The first day I officially joined Blackwell Industries, he walked into my office without knocking. "So you're the secret weapon now," he sneered. I looked up from a report. "Good morning to you too." His jaw tightened. "I know exactly what this is. Please enlighten me. You think you can steal my inheritance?" I almost laughed. The irony was incredible. For 28 years nobody had given me anything. Everything I had built came from my own effort. Yet here he was accusing me of stealing. "I don't need your inheritance, Ethan." "Then why are you here?" I met his gaze calmly. "To work." He rolled his eyes. "Sure." Then he left. I watched the door close behind him. The truth was simple. I hadn't joined Blackwell Industries for money. I hadn't joined for family. I hadn't joined for forgiveness. I had joined because opportunity was standing right in front of me. And unlike my father, I never walked away from opportunity. By the end of my first month, I uncovered enough wasteful spending to save the company nearly $50 million. The board noticed. More importantly, they remembered. The deeper I looked into the company, the more problems I found. Most weren't accidents. They led directly back to Ethan. Bad investments. Unqualified friends placed in executive roles. Contracts awarded to people who barely understood the business. Every week revealed another disaster. Meanwhile I worked. Early mornings. Late nights. Weekend meetings. The same habits that had built my own company. Employees started talking. Not gossip. Respect. I noticed it in small ways. Managers requested my opinion. Teams invited me into planning sessions. Department heads sought my approval before making decisions. Trust wasn't given. It was earned. And I was earning it. One afternoon, Victor called me into his office. The room overlooked the city skyline. He seemed proud. "You've exceeded every expectation." I sat across from him. "Your expectations were pretty low." A faint smile appeared. "You always say exactly what you're thinking." I learned that from growing up without billionaires around. The smile disappeared. Immediately I regretted it. Not because he didn't deserve it. Because I saw genuine hurt in his eyes. For a moment neither of us spoke. Then he quietly said, "I deserve that." I wasn't prepared for the honesty. Neither was he. The conversation shifted back to business. But afterward I found myself thinking about him. Not as Victor Blackwell the billionaire. Not as the man who erased me. Just a flawed father growing older. And that made everything more complicated. 3 months after joining Blackwell Industries, the board held its annual leadership review. I expected a routine meeting. Instead, it became a battlefield. Ethan arrived late again. Victor looked exhausted. The directors looked frustrated. Then the performance reports appeared on the screen. The numbers spoke for themselves. Every division under my supervision had improved. Revenue was up. Costs were down. Employee satisfaction had increased. Meanwhile, Ethan's projects were disasters. One board member finally said what everyone was thinking. "Mr. Blackwell, we need to discuss succession." The room went silent. Victor remained expressionless. Ethan sat forward. This discussion is premature. No, another director replied. It's overdue. The argument exploded. For nearly an hour, board members debated the future. I remained quiet, observing, listening, learning. Then one director turned toward me. Ms. Monroe, what is your vision for the company? Every eye in the room shifted toward me. Even Ethan looked surprised. I answered honestly. Innovation, long-term growth, responsible leadership, employee investment. Nothing revolutionary, just common sense. Yet the room listened carefully. When I finished, several directors nodded. Ethan noticed. So did Victor. For the first time, I understood something important. The board wasn't looking at me as an executive anymore. They were looking at me as a possible future leader. And that changed everything. That evening, Ethan confronted me in the parking garage. His face was red with anger. You planned this. I stopped walking. Planned what? The board. Decide. Ethan, I didn't make you miss meetings. His expression darkened. I should have known you'd manipulate them. I shook my head. No. You did that yourself. The truth hit harder than any insult. He knew it too. For a second, his confidence cracked. Then the anger returned. You think Dad cares about you? There it was. The real issue. Not business. Not succession. Jealousy. He spent 28 years pretending you didn't exist. I remained silent. He'll never choose you. His words should have hurt. Instead, they felt strangely empty. 'Cause something had changed. I no longer needed Victor's approval. That little girl who cried over the blank birth certificate was gone. I had built a life without him. Successful one. Whether he accepted me or not no longer defined my worth. Ethan noticed my lack of reaction. And it terrified him. Because bullies depend on wounds. Mine had finally healed. As he stormed away, I realized something. For years, I thought Victor was my biggest obstacle. He wasn't. Ethan was. And unlike Victor, Ethan wasn't sorry. He wasn't trying to change. He wasn't trying to fix anything. He simply wanted power. Which meant sooner or later, he would make a mistake. Very big mistake. The mistake came sooner than expected. 6 weeks later, an anonymous package arrived at my office. Inside was a flash drive. No note. No explanation. Just a single file. Curious, I opened it. What I found made my blood run cold. Financial records. Private emails. Unauthorized transactions. Millions of dollars hidden through shell companies. Every document pointed to one person. Ethan. First I assumed it was fake. But my team verified everything. The evidence was real. Painfully real. Someone had been stealing from Blackwell Industries. And the trail led directly to Victor's son. For 3 days I reviewed every document. Every transfer. Every account. The amount kept growing. 5 million. 10 million. 20 million. By the end, the total exceeded $70 million. I sat alone in my office staring at the final report. 70 million. Not incompetence. Not bad judgment. The next morning, I requested an emergency board meeting. Victor arrived looking concerned. The directors arrived confused. Ethan arrived irritated. Then I connected my laptop to the projector. The first document appeared. Then the second. Then the third. The room became silent. Completely silent. Ethan's face lost all color. Victor stared at the screen in disbelief. And as the evidence continued piling up, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. The battle for Blackwell Industries had officially begun. And this time there would be no going back. The boardroom felt like a courtroom. Nobody spoke for several seconds after the last document appeared on the screen. Ethan looked trapped. Victor looked devastated. One director finally broke the silence. Tell me this isn't true. Ethan swallowed. There has to be some mistake. There isn't, I replied calmly. The forensic accountants had verified everything. Every transfer. Every account. Every hidden payment. The evidence was overwhelming. Ethan tried to argue. Then he tried to blame former employees. Then he blamed consultants. Then he blamed the accounting department. Each excuse collapsed within minutes. The board members grew angrier with every answer. Finally, Victor stood. His voice was quiet. Too quiet. "Ethan, did you do this?" For the first time, his son couldn't look him in the eye. That was answer enough. Victor closed his eyes. The disappointment on his face was painful to watch. Not because Ethan was losing power. Because a father was watching his son's choices destroy years of trust. The vote happened immediately. Ethan was removed from every leadership role. His access to company accounts was revoked. An internal investigation was launched. When the meeting ended, he glared at me. "This is your fault." I shook my head. "No. This is yours." Then he walked out. And for the first time, Blackwell Industries felt lighter. As if a storm had finally passed. The weeks after Ethan's removal were chaotic. Reporters surrounded headquarters. Investors demanded answers. Competitors smelled weakness. But something unexpected happened. The company stabilized. Without Ethan creating problems, projects moved smoothly. Teams worked better. Managers made smarter decisions. Confidence slowly returned. The board noticed. So did investors. One evening, Victor invited me to dinner again. This time there were no lawyers. No negotiations. No hidden agenda. At least that was what I thought. We ate quietly for a while. Then he put down his fork. "I owe you more than an apology." I remained silent. "You saved the company. I exposed the truth. You did both." For a moment, he looked older than I had ever seen him. Not weak, just tired. The kind of tiredness that comes from carrying regrets for years. Then he surprised me. "When I first met your mother, I thought I had all the time in the world." My chest tightened. He continued. "I kept telling myself I would fix things later." Later. The most dangerous word in existence. Because later never comes. "I was wrong," he said quietly. For the first time I believed him. Not because he deserved forgiveness. But because the regret in his eyes seemed real. Still, some wounds take longer to heal than others. And ours were nearly 3 decades behind them. A few months later, Victor suffered a mild heart attack. The news spread quickly. Fortunately, doctors expected a full recovery. But it changed everything. Suddenly, succession wasn't a future problem. It was an immediate one. Board members became anxious. Investors became nervous. The media became relentless. Questions appeared everywhere. Who would lead Blackwell Industries next? One afternoon, Victor asked me to visit him at home. His mansion overlooked the ocean. The view was breathtaking. Yet he barely seemed to notice it. He looked thoughtful. Almost vulnerable. After a long silence, he finally spoke. "I don't have much family left." I waited. "Ethan refuses to answer my calls." That didn't surprise me. "What about your wife?" His expression darkened. "We divorced years ago." I didn't know that. Then he looked directly at me. "Ava, I need to ask something important." The seriousness in his voice caught my attention. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "I need an heir." The words hung in the air. I stared at him. An heir. Not a daughter. Not family. An heir. Someone to continue the Blackwell legacy. For a second I almost laughed. After everything that had happened, this was what he wanted. His empire was preserved. His name protected. His future was secured. And suddenly, a very interesting idea began forming in my mind. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I let the silence work. Victor seemed nervous. Imagine that. One of the richest men in the world sitting anxiously, waiting for a response from the daughter he once erased. Finally I spoke. "What exactly are you asking?" His shoulders relaxed slightly. "I want you to take over someday." There it was. The offer. The recognition. The validation I had once wanted more than anything. Years ago I might have accepted instantly. Now I wasn't so sure. Why me? He looked genuinely surprised. Because you're the most capable person I've ever met. The answer felt sincere. Yet something inside me remained cautious. For 28 years, Victor had made decisions based on what benefited him. Was this really different? Or was I simply the best available option? That night I reviewed everything. Company reports, board relationships, ownership structures, voting shares, governance policies. Not because I was planning to accept, because I was planning to understand. And what I discovered fascinated me. Victor controlled the company. But not as completely as everyone believed. There were weaknesses, legal pathways, corporate mechanisms, the kind of details most people ignored. I didn't. By sunrise, I understood something important. If I played this correctly, I wouldn't simply inherit Blackwell Industries. Could own it. Completely. The realization made me smile. Because Victor thought he was offering me a gift. He had no idea I was preparing something much bigger. Over the next year I worked harder than ever. Profits increased. New products launched successfully. Investors regained confidence. The stock price climbed steadily. Every quarter strengthened my reputation. The board trusted me. Employees supported me. Shareholders respected me. Piece by piece, influence accumulated. Meanwhile, Victor's health continued to decline. Nothing dramatic. Just the slow reality of aging. One afternoon he called me into his office. The same office where he had spent decades building his empire. His desk was covered with legal documents. I've updated my estate plan. I sat across from him. And he smiled faintly. You'll see soon enough. That answer told me everything. He had made his decision. Outside the office, I encountered several board members. Their expressions were revealing. Confident, supportive, expectant. They already knew, or at least suspected. The transition was coming. But while everyone focused on succession, I focused on ownership. For months, I had quietly acquired shares. Nothing illegal. Nothing unethical. Just strategic, patient, methodical. The same way a chess player controls the board before delivering checkmate. Nobody noticed. Not the media. Not investors. Not even Victor. They all believed the future would be simple. A daughter inheriting her father's position. Family reconciliation. Happy ending. I knew better. Because this story was never about inheritance. It was about consequences. And very soon, the man who left my father's name blank on my birth certificate would learn exactly how expensive that blank space had become. The announcement came 6 months later. Blackwell Industries organized a massive shareholder meeting in New York. Reporters filled the room. Cameras lined the walls. Investors flew in from around the world. Everyone knew something important was about to happen. Nobody knew exactly what. I sat beside Victor on the stage. He looked calm. Older than before, but calm. When the meeting began, he walked to the podium. The room fell silent. For nearly 20 minutes, he spoke about the company, its history, its challenges, its future. Then he reached the part everyone had been waiting for. My health has forced me to think carefully about succession. Hundreds of people leaned forward. I have spent years searching for the right leader. He paused. His eyes found mine. Then he smiled. I found her. The room erupted with whispers. Cameras immediately turned toward me. Victor continued. Today, I am officially naming Ava Monroe as my successor. The applause started slowly, then grew louder, much louder. Board members stood first. Investors followed. Soon the entire room was applauding. I smiled politely, but inside I remained focused. Because while everyone celebrated the announcement, they didn't know the whole story. Not yet. The biggest surprise was still coming. And it would change everything. Not everyone accepted the news. Especially Ethan. 3 days after the announcement, he appeared at my office. For the first time he looked desperate. Not angry. Desperate. You can't do this. I remained seated. I already did. This company belongs to my family. The irony almost made me laugh. I am your family. His expression twisted. No. The answer came too quickly. Too emotionally. He still couldn't accept reality. After everything that had happened, he still saw me as an outsider. Threat. Mistake. Just as Victor once had. The realization was strangely freeing. Some people never change. Ethan continued talking. But warnings. Predictions of disaster. I listened patiently. Then I asked a simple question. If the company belonged to you, why did you steal from it? The room went silent. His face turned red. Because he had no answer. At least none that sounded reasonable. Eventually he left. But before reaching the door, he turned around. This isn't over. The words sounded dramatic. Almost childish. Yet something about them bothered me. Ethan wasn't smart enough to outmaneuver me. But desperate people are unpredictable. And unpredictability can be dangerous. For the first time in months I felt uneasy. Not because I feared losing. Because I suspected Ethan was preparing one final move. 2 weeks later my suspicion proved correct. The emergency board meeting began at 8 in the morning. Ethan arrived unexpectedly. So did several attorneys. Immediately I knew what was happening. Challenge. Legal attack. His lawyer stood and presented a stack of documents. Claims. Accusations. Demands. According to Ethan, Victor had unfairly favored me. According to Ethan, the succession plan should be invalidated. According to Ethan, he deserved control. The board listened carefully. Then they asked questions. Lots of questions. Questions Ethan couldn't answer. Questions his lawyers struggled to answer. Because facts are stubborn things. And the facts weren't on his side. Then Ethan made a fatal mistake. He lost his temper. Completely. Years of entitlement exploded in front of everyone. He insulted board members. Accused executives. Blamed investors. The outburst lasted nearly 5 minutes. When he finally stopped, the room was silent. Nobody looked impressed. Nobody looked convinced. They looked exhausted. One director leaned forward. Mr. Blackwell, thank you. Ethan blinked. Thank you. The director nodded. You've just removed every remaining doubt. A vote was called. The decision was unanimous. His challenge failed. Completely. As security escorted him from the building, he glared at me. But for the first time I felt no anger. Only pity. Because the person who destroyed Ethan's future wasn't me. It was Ethan. The final board meeting took place 1 month later. The agenda seemed simple. Leadership transition. Corporate restructuring. Future planning. Only a handful of people knew the truth. I was one of them. Victor was another. The meeting proceeded normally until the final item. Ownership disclosures. The corporate secretary began reviewing major shareholders. Names appeared on the screen. Investment firms. Trust. Institutions. Then one name appeared. The room became very quiet. Several board members looked confused. Others looked shocked. The secretary continued. Over the previous 2 years, I had legally acquired substantial ownership through purchases, partnerships, and investment vehicles. Far more than anyone realized. Enough to become the company's largest individual shareholder. Gasps echoed through the room. Victor stared at the screen. Then at me. Not angry. Just surprised. Very surprised. I met his gaze. A slow smile appeared on his face. You planned this. He nodded. Yes. The room waited. Victor suddenly laughed. A deep, genuine laugh. The kind I had never heard from him before. You really are my daughter. The board joined in. The tension disappeared instantly. When the final votes were counted, the outcome was clear. I wasn't simply becoming CEO. I was taking control. Complete control. The company he spent a lifetime building would now belong to the daughter he once erased. The irony was almost perfect. 3 months later, I stood alone in my office. The thought still felt strange sometimes. The city stretched beyond the windows. Employees moved through the building below. Meetings continued. Projects advanced. The company was thriving. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Victor entered slowly. Retirement suited him. He seemed lighter, more peaceful. Without a word, he placed a small envelope on my desk. "What is it?" he asked. "Open it." Inside was a document. I stared at it, then stared harder. My throat tightened. It was an amended birth record. The father's section was no longer blank. His name was there. Victor Blackwell. Officially. Legally. Finally. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he quietly said, "I know it doesn't fix the past. No. It doesn't erase what I did. No." He nodded slowly. "I didn't think it would." I looked at the document again. 28 years. 28 years to fill one empty space. A space that had shaped my entire life. Finally, I folded the paper and placed it carefully back inside the envelope. Then I looked at him. Not as the billionaire who abandoned me. Not as the founder of a global company. Just as my father. A flawed man who had made terrible choices. And who had finally faced their consequences. "You know what's funny?" he asked. "What?" Smiled. "When I was little, I thought having your name would change everything." Victor waited. "But it turns out I never needed it." His eyes filled with emotion. I stood and looked out over the city. The company was mine. The future was mine. The life I built was mine. Not because of inheritance. Not because of a billionaire father. 'Cause I earned it. And in the end, that blank space on my birth certificate became the greatest gift Victor Blackwell ever gave me. Taught me how to build my own name. And that name became powerful enough to take his company.